So, is it clear that no Indian recognized that Candrakīrti's view of emptiness, that Candrakīrti was claiming that his view of emptiness was different from that of Bhava-viveka? Did you get that clear? No. You know, what famous Indian Madhyamakas followed Candrakīrti? I mean, came after Candrakīrti.
Shantideva.
Oh, right. Atisha.
Shantideva.
Yes. None of these people said that according to Candrakīrti, the objective negation in emptiness is such and such, whereas for Bhava-viveka, it's something else. It passed them by. It was if they noticed it, it was of zero consequence, which means they didn't notice it. And it'd be very interesting in Tibet whether there's anyone pre-Tsong-kha-pa who noticed there were, with regard to the doctrine of emptiness, there was a difference between, that there were any Indians who noticed that Candrakīrti had a different view on emptiness, and that means on what is negated in emptiness, from that of Bhava-viveka. That Candrakīrti's criticism was based on a different perception of what emptiness is. Not only the consequences of what emptiness is for presenting conventional phenomena and so forth, but with regard to emptiness itself. Tsong-kha-pa, in his, when he says this, you could almost read it and not notice what he was saying. And you probably have seen this. Well, this is in Tsong-kha-pa's The Essence of Eloquence, or as I used to say, The Essence of Good Explanations. He points out that Bhava-viveka, when he criticized Buddhapalita, did not criticize him by way of having a different view on it with regard to emptiness. Bhava-viveka himself didn't see a difference. Avalokita, Bhava-viveka's commentator, but not a direct student or not, I forget. Anyway, who's post-Candrakīrti, did not notice it. Did not notice that Candrakīrti was criticizing Bhava-viveka for having a wrong view about emptiness. You follow? Tsong-kha-pa says this. And he says about Avalokita, Avalokita describes the two masters, Bhava-viveka and Buddhapalita, as similar with respect to the mode of phenomena existing conventionally, as only like illusions, and not having nature or entityness ultimately. Even though from Tsong-kha-pa's point of view, they really do differ. And even though Avalokita is post-Candrakīrti and Candrakīrti's criticism, even Jnanagarbha, Shantarakshita, Kamalashila, and so forth, Jnanagarbha is Bhava-viveka's main man, something like that, as opposed to Avalokita. Jnanagarbha, I forget which one was the direct student, which one wasn't. It's probably Jnanagarbha who isn't.
Is it spelled J?
Yes. The Indians tend to say Jnana, otherwise Jnana. And people in Europe and America, Australia tend to say There's something that nobody says, jnana. Even jnana garbha, shantarakshita, kamalashila, and so forth, do not speak of a mode of difference concerning selflessness between the system of Buddhapalita and Candrakīrti on the one hand, and their own systems on the other. Jnana garbha being what system?
Bhagavikas.
What system is that?
Autonomous.
Autonomy. What, within the autonomy school, which branch? Svātantrika, Svātantrika, Madhyamaka. Shantarakshita? What system? Yoga-chara, Svātantrika, Madhyamaka. Good guess. Only two choices. This one had already been said. So Candrakīrti comments on the thought of Nagarjuna in accordance with Buddhapalita. Hence, he asserts that he doesn't differ between his and Buddhapalita's mode of positing the conventional and the ultimate. But Candrakīrti describes his own system as not shared with the commentaries on Nagarjuna's thought by other proponents of the middle way. And so Tsong-kha-pa quotes Candrakīrti. So now we have to prove, in fact, that Candrakīrti thought he differed, right? I mean, if these great Indian scholars never picked up on this, then the most likely solution is that there wasn't any difference. They didn't differ. So Tsong-kha-pa goes to some extent to, as much as he can, to show that there is a difference. And he quotes Candrakīrti. Just as, except for Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle, this doctrine called emptiness is not expressed non-erroneously in other treatises. So scholars should ascertain that the system which I have set out here, together with the objections and answers, and which appears in this text, does not exist in accordance with the doctrine of emptiness in other treatises, meaning other than Buddhapalita. It's very clear that he's teaming up with Buddhapalita. Therefore, it should be understood that a certain scholar is propounding that just what is propounded as ultimate in the system of the Sutra school is asserted as conventional by the proponents of the middle is a proposition only by one who does not know the suchness of Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle. So you see, Tsong-kha-pa took this and he makes he puts tremendous focus on this to the point where in Europe, America, Australia, and Japan, and so forth, nowadays, people take it for granted that there's a different view of emptiness in Svātantrika and in Prasangika. It actually has its origin, you could say, the focus on it certainly, with Tsong-kha.
Does Tsong-kha-pa Candrakīrti identify that certain scholar who says what is accepted as ultimate in other systems is accepted conventionally?
Jnana-garbha, in his auto-commentary on the Two Truths, his own book called The Two Truths, cites the following stanza as a source, and this is interpolated by me, but this is the point, for the position that what is ultimate in one system is the conventional in another. And so it's Jnana-garbha following Bhāvaviveka. Well, I'm not saying Bhāvaviveka said this. That which some treat as ultimate is the conventional for others. You see, and you see all this work of Cozort's, which is Jayanshava's work, which goes back to Tsong-kha-pa's work on the same topic, is to show that what other people take to be the ultimate, maybe some of it is conventional for prasangikas, but others don't exist at all, like the basis of all, or partless particles. Just as that which one asserts as his mother, another also asserts as his wife. There's always some folksy. Okay. So what's left in dealing with Cozort's text? Okay, here we are, Francis. Yes.
This is the 9th chapter about
Yes.
nirvānas with remainder and without remainder. And Jam-dbyangs-bzhad-pa attacks the position of those schools that assert that with remainder is the mere abandonment of the afflictions, and nirvāna without remainder is the cutting of the continuum of the aggregates. And so he proposes two consequences. One is that nirvāna without remainder would then not be actualized, because if a person's mental and physical aggregates were completely cut off, there would be no person and no one to experience the nirvāna. And the second is that I can't remember too much about this. Sutras that state that the foe destroyers attain a nirvāna in which the contaminated aggregates are extinguished should be understood to mean that those aggregates are extinguished into emptiness, but not irrevocably cut off. And then he provides two definitions for nirvāna with remainder and without remainder. With remainder being a nirvāna which, although the afflictions are extinguished, involves a remainder of mistaken dualistic appearance due to the predispositions of those afflictions. And without remainder being a nirvāna without a remainder of mistaken dualistic appearance. Because this extinguishment of the aggregates and so forth has the meaning of being extinguished into the element of qualities.
Into the
So that's the element of qualities.
What is that in Sanskrit? Element of qualities?
Dharmadhatu.
Yes, Dharmadhatu. In Tibetan? I'll just interrupt for a moment. This is a definition that I found in Benchuje's annotations to Giant Sheva's Great Exposition of Tenets. And I believe it is drawn from Maitreya's Uttanamje, the Madhyamaka Vibhaga. Anyone hazard a translation? Karma Mignet Gombe. So there's a typical way of giving an etymology. Because of doing blah blah blah, it's called tree. Yin has the same meaning as Jungwa. You know the Jungwa sheep? What's the Jungwa sheep? Yeah, Sachu Melon. Say it. Sachu Melon. Sachu Melon. Sachu Melon. Sachu Melon. So these are the four elements. So yin is the sense of an element of chirp, an element producing chirp. Emptiness is being called an element that produces chirp. Chirp doesn't mean religion or doctrine, but means qualities. An element that produces qualities. Now, can emptiness be an element? An element is like a cause, you, right? Can emptiness be a cause?
No.
Why?
Because it's permanent.
Yeah, it's permanent. It's mere absence. So, Karma Migne, upon observing it, okay, through meditation, upon observing it, the qualities of an Aryan, of a superior, are generated. Therefore, it's called element of qualities, element of a superior's qualities, element producing a superior's qualities. So even though it really doesn't itself produce it, meditation on it, meditation observing it, produces the qualities of a superior. Thus it's called tree. Now, in Nyingma and so forth, I don't think this is the predominant meaning. It's more like sphere of reality or tree meaning. This is an Indian-based etymology, but there can be indeed many Indian-based etymologies. Please. So, which of the two nirvanas is attained first according to Candrakīrti's system? Giant Shiva's interpretation of Candrakīrti. First of all, where would you turn for a discussion of interpretations of nirvana in Europe, America, and so forth? One book. It's Guy Welbon's book, The Buddhist Nirvana. And it details different opinions on what nirvana is by, Travatsky, etc. And it never tells you itself what nirvana is. This is Buddhist, Euro-American Buddhist scholarship that is totally looking at itself. And it's feeding on itself. And so you get no illumination on what nirvana is. Really, it's quite discouraging that way, because you would think that he might have discovered some perspective that would settle it, and it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. But it's a good book to know about in terms of the history of Buddhist studies in Europe, America, and so forth. So, according to Candrakīrti,
This is a subject I don't know.
yeah. Okay, now, according to the wrong interpretation of the nirvanas with remainder and without remainder, in other words, non-prasangika interpretations, which one do you get first? Come on, anyone? With remainder. Why?
Because you still got your aggregates.
Yeah. In other words, you're sitting in meditation, directly perceiving emptiness, whatever the emptiness is, however it's defined. And finally, the last little bit of the afflictive emotions, including the seeds that would produce those afflictive emotions, is overcome. You have nirvana. Person's body is still there, mind is still there. The person's going to rise from that meditative equipoise, still live out the life that is impelled by former afflictive actions, right? Former afflictive karma set up the life, it's going to be played out. So there is a nirvana with remainder. Then when that person dies, at least according to the so-called low vehicle schools, there's a severance of the continuum mind and body, and then you'll have a nirvana, without remainder. And of course, Giant Shiva asks, maybe Candrakīrti, I forget who, asked the question, Giant Shiva does, doesn't he?
Yes.
Well, whoever it is, this tradition asks the question, who then attains the nirvana without remainder? There's no more mind, no more body, and there's no more person to have it. But then in those schools that accept that you still go on in some intentional lifetime in order to go on to the great vehicle and so forth, it's still without a remainder of aggregates that are impelled through the force of contaminated actions and afflictive emotions, because it's by some wish, by your own intention, that you then reappear. Okay? So having the nirvana without remainder in non-prasangika schools does not require that there be a severance to the continuum of mind and body. Asking Theravada amongst the nuns about nirvana, this is really the experience of everything. Is it a severance? Is it a complete knockout? You get many different answers. And there are some famous statements in Hindu literature about returning to the source, the fire going out, returning to the source. And that there's some sort of source state that one is returning to. but that it's not worth describing or can't be described. So whether there is as radical a cutoff of mind and body, or whether there's absolutely nothing, probably have different groups, some asserting that it is and some asserting that it isn't. Now the joke is that, well, it turns out to be Anne's husband, and he was taking his comprehensives, oral comprehensives at the University of Wisconsin. Richard Robinson, one of them was on Hinduism, asked, where does the fire go? And it goes out. Harvey wasn't familiar with this, so he had to say something. He says, where did the donut hole go when you eat the donut? And apparently Robinson was pissed. In fact, I would have been delighted.
It's like Zen in bed.
Yes. It's a good enough answer, except, I mean, it's anyway.
I don't really understand Jam-dbyangs-bzhad-pa's point. Why is there a talent that there needs to be someone who experienced the nirvāṇa?
Well, nirvana is something to be attained, is it not? You see, it's as simple as that. It's a state to be attained. And indeed, you can say, well, that's the very virtue of it. That by that point, then, there's no one to attain it. You've understood the proper state of things, and we just call this nirvana without remainder, and get off my back. So, this Candrakīrti tradition turns it around, and you attain the nirvana without remainder first, and the nirvana with remainder second. So in these so-called lower schools version, what is the remainder?
Aggregates.
Aggregates impelled by contaminated actions and afflictive emotions. You have to qualify that, because you could have, you see, aggregates remaining in some of those schools, okay, even according to Tibetan systems. Talking about those schools, right? So then what's the remainder in Candrakīrti? If he posits that first you get the nirvana without remainder.
Aggregates that are not afflictive.
Is this in your report? I don't think so. Okay. Any idea how you could work it up? Aggregates what?
Not afflictive, I mean,
How could you get that first?
oh, first, no, sorry.
You get the nirvana without remainder first.
So what's the question?
So what is the remainder that you are without? You can't say that it's that aggregates that get their impetus from contaminated actions and afflictive emotions. You no longer say that. If you're going to get the remainderless nirvana first, and then the nirvana with remainder after that. So the remainder is dena, the appearance of true existence, the appearance of inherent existence. Because when you enter that meditative equipoise, okay, you're in meditative equipoise, and you're overcoming the small of the small. Anyway, you're overcoming the last remainder of the afflictive emotions. I shouldn't use remainder. The last of the afflictive emotions. You then are in meditative equipoise, directly perceiving emptiness, and at that time you have no appearance of inherent existence. And you have overcome all afflictions. Then when you rise out of that, you again have an appearance of inherent existence, even though you don't believe it. We're talking about low vehicle. Because it's only a Buddha who has overcome the appearance of inherent existence. That's what makes you omniscient, right? So first the practitioner has a nirvana without remainder, which is in meditative equipoise at the point at which the last of the afflictive emotions are overcome. And then when the person finally rises out of that meditative equipoise, there is a remainder of dualistic or appearance, or the appearance of inherent existence, which then is destroyed later on through the bodhisattva path, practice of the bodhisattva path. So it's turning terminology on its head again, okay? All right. And the degree to which this is present or not in clear or unclear form in Indian literature, you know, Jayaship is very good for listing his sources, and so looking at Cozort's translation, you can find this out. In other words, I'm not up on it. There must be some little corner of a line in Candrakīrti's writing that suggests that this is his view. So it's the nirvāṇa nirvāna and sopadishesha nirvāna. That's presentation number 9. 10? Excuse me? Don't make anybody tell you to speak up. What?
Predispositions and non-afflictive ignorance are obstructions to omniscience. This is the title of the 7th chapter. He's talking about the 2 obstructions. I just summarized a little bit. The main point here is that while there may be a cessation of afflictive emotions, predispositions remain.
Oh, may I interrupt? Go back to the last topic. When that nirvana is achieved, when nirvana, according to prasangika or any system, when a nirvana is achieved, that means one achieves a true cessation of all of the afflictive emotions, right? Do you also wipe out the seeds of those afflictive emotions? When you overcome all of the afflictive emotions, when you achieve a nirvana, do you also get rid of the seeds of those afflictive emotions? Yeah, you better, because if you didn't, they'd grow back up. Okay, then the person still has, when you've overcome the afflictive emotions and their seeds, you still have an appearance of inherent existence. From what? That is yet to be gotten rid of.
Obstructions to
Which is omniscience.
That's the obstructions to omniscience, but why do you have it?
Why do you have
But you don't have afflictive emotions anymore, you don't have seeds of afflictive emotions anymore.
Reactivate.
That's a clever, wrong statement. Clever, eh? You're working within the system, which makes it clever.
the fact that your aggregates are still under the force of contaminating condition?
And so these are called the predispositions, the pacha. So there's a difference between nyomungi sabuntan, nyomungi pacha. When the difference is made, and you have to make it for certain distinctions here. These are 2 words that in other systems would mean the same thing. Pacha. So in most systems, sabun and pacha mean the same thing. Seeds of the afflictive emotions, which means seeds that will produce afflictive emotions. Now, nyomungi pacha, predispositions, it doesn't mean predispositions that will produce afflictive emotions, because you overcome afflictive emotions. That means predispositions established by nyomungi shakbe pacha, hao shaka shaka. Nyomungi shakbe pacha. When it means something different. And so you see the first has been overcome when you get nirvana, because you don't have a chance of having any afflictive emotions again. But the nyomungi pacha and Bill's remark, you know, something has been set up from the past that is carrying over. That's what he was saying. Much as in Buddhahood, why are you appearing and so forth to sentient beings? It's really through the force of the accumulation of the collections of merit prior to Buddhahood that sets it up so that you're just displaying appropriately for any sentient being. On the negative side, afflictive emotions have set up something so that things appear to us in a wrong aspect, even though there now is no longer any chance that you would believe it. Any chance, no chance at all. So this ties, you see, directly into your topic of predispositions, being the obstructions to omniscience. So it's the predispositions established by the afflictive emotions that are the obstructions to omniscience. If you say predispositions of, or which generate afflictive emotions, those would be the same as seeds of afflictive emotions. The word seed is not used for the obstructions to omniscience. Why, I don't know. Yes. Please.
Yeah, some of the metaphors they use to describe these are that which remains after a pot has come in contact with sesame oil, or that which remains in a woolen cloth that has come in contact with flowers. This idea of a residue or scent.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the example of foe destroyers acting in strange ways was kind of funny. It was almost, gave a colloquial example. It was almost like even if you weren't angry or anything, if you might use an expletive. You might say, "Oh shit!" If you did something, stubbed your toe or whatever, without really having the full force of anger.
Are these obstructions to omniscience?
No, I can't. Again, that's what I gleaned from.
Okay. There's
Apparently, they can't be overcome until the 8th round.
yes, 8 grounds. When on the Bodhisattva path does one attain the equivalent of a nirvāṇa without remainder? Without remainder means you've overcome all of the afflictive emotions, right? The same question is asking, when on the Bodhisattva path have you overcome all afflictive emotions and have only the obstructions to omniscience yet to be removed? It's at the beginning of the 8th ground, that marks the beginning of the 8th ground, when you have overcome all afflictive emotions. So if the Ning-Ilengi, these weird sorts of,
It says it right here. Right.
what does it say?
It can't be overcome until the afflictions are totally destroyed, which happens at the time of the 8th round.
Oh, so
The
then,
beginning of the 8th round.
okay, so then, I'm asking, do these constitute the obstructions to omniscience, or are they a separate level of problem that's also overcome along with overcoming the obstructions to omniscience? Ning-Ilengi. So the obstructions or defilements, if it's chima, of assuming bad situations. You know, as he's saying, stub your foot, and here you are, a foe destroyer, and you say, "Oh shit!" And you have nervous habits that you just do every now and then.
So, all right, this was whether obstructions to omniscience were consciousnesses or not. And there was some disagreement about that. Apparently, Jonan Sheva and Panchen Sonam Gyaltsen said yes, but Ngawang Belden says that Tsong-kha-pa says obstructions to omniscience are merely predispositions of mistaken dualistic appearances, and not a consciousness. Is the following quote. The subtle obstructions preventing the perception of the two truths directly and simultaneously by one consciousness are designated ignorance, but are not actual consciousnesses. Hence, there is not even partial contradiction.
Let me give you a little background. Among the 4 schools of tenets, which ones posit obstructions to omniscience?
Cittamātra and Madhyamaka.
Right. So, is there no omniscience in the low vehicle, according to low vehicle schools?
Like a serial omniscience, right?
Okay, so then when we talk about obstructions to omniscience, we mean simultaneously, directly realizing everything. All phenomena and all infiniteness, okay? That kind of omniscience is only in the great vehicle, as long as you close your eyes when you're reading certain transitional sects, right? Leading to great vehicle.
They use different terminology too, don't they? They don't say omniscience and omniscience.
Well, there's the school of one convention, Eka Vyavahara, whatever. And their one convention has to do with omniscience. And that omniscience is simultaneous cognition of everything. And it's one of the sub-schools of Vaibhashika. And Jayasheba, I forget, has some way of explaining it away. But so in general, low vehicle schools do not posit this kind of omniscience, right? And thus it's only the great vehicle schools of Cittamātra and Madhyamaka that posit obstructions to omniscience. So in Cittamātra, what are the afflictive obstructions and what are the obstructions to omniscience?
So there's a difference between subject and object.
So a consciousness conceiving of a difference of entity between subject and object. If those are the afflictive obstructions, what are then the obstructions to omniscience? Those are the obstructions. That's what constitutes the obstructions to omniscience. The afflictive obstructions is kansagitanzin, conception of a self of persons, which means that the person is rangyatube zayir, that the person is rangyatube zayir, substantially established in the sense of being self-sufficient, self-supportive. This is the conception of a self, the subtle conception of self of persons, and it is what gives rise to all of the afflictive emotions. Whereas the obstructions to omniscience are constituted by a consciousness that conceives that there's a difference of entity between subject and object, or another way of saying this is that phenomena are established by way of their own character as the reference of our thoughts and as the reference of our terms. So this conception of the person as being substantially established in the sense of being self-sufficient is the nyunjit, okay? The afflictive obstruction. And it's the same all the way up to prasangika. So in Svātantrika, we'll just sort of deal in general. What are then the obstructions to omniscience? Conception of true existence. This is the way Gelupa scholars have separated it out. They say, Rangivelu, it's Tenzin. In Tengivelu, it's Ranshika. Even if really both use both terms. Tsong-kha-pa explicitly says in his The Essence of Eloquence that the Indian Madhyamakas, Svātantrika and Prasangika, use both terms indiscriminately. Because of course they didn't notice, right? They didn't notice that one was saying this, one was saying that. Or that Candrakīrti had different skew on things. But then within Gelu, the terminology gets separated. So the Dendru or Denzin can be refer to this coarser level, and Ranshinga Drupadzimba can, when you do separate them, can refer to this subtler thing. So you see, the conception of true existence in Svātantrika is what prevents omniscience. In Prasangika, what they're doing is saying the conception of true existence is nyurjit. And the conception of true existence means the conception of inherent existence, which is even more subtle than what the Rangyabhas hold the obstructions to omniscience is. The Rangyabhas hold that Denzin, right, is the obstruction to omniscience. Whereas in Prasangika, they say Denzin isn't an obstruction to omniscience, it's an obstruction to liberation from particular existence. It's nyunjit. And Denzin is even more subtle than what you Rangyabhas identified it to be. See, this is the point that Candrakīrti identifies a different emptiness that must be realized. So the Denzin that's posited in Svātantrika as instruction to omniscience turns out to be a Nyurjip in Prasangika and is given even a more subtle meaning. So that Denzin is Nyurjip is an uncommon, is a unique feature of Prasangika. So then you have to come up with something that is Shejip, instruction to omniscience. Sheje Jiba. Nyumumbe Jiba, right? Clay Shavran. Sheje Jiba. Jnye Avran. Now what's the relationship between Nyumumba and Jiba here? This genitive, what kind of genitive is it? Yeah, obstructions, which are afflictive emotions, so they either be type or positive, right? Either one. Both. Sheje Jiba, you would expect this to be type or a positive. Obstructions, which are objects of knowledge, that would be ridiculous. You see, I'm pointing this out because a lot of people think that this is what Shejijuba means. You know, that you have an object is the obstruction to omniscience. No, it means obstructions to simultaneous cognition of objects of knowledge. Obstructions to objects of knowledge. Okay, just want to point this out because people have out there a lot of strange ideas of what this, because of the term. Once this term is done this way, as in a positive or type genitive, you would expect that to be so here.
What is the object of the obstruction to omniscience for someone?
The predispositions,
Okay.
you see, there are many ways of saying it. One is to say, once Denzin is Nyurjip, you with me? Translate.
Once the conception of true existence is relegated to the level of afflictive.
Yeah. Then the obstruction to omniscience, easiest way to say it is Denan. Denan. Appearance of true existence, which is understood as Den is understood as meaning Ranshingi Trubhanal. Okay? Now, another way of saying it is Denzingi Hacha. A little bit different way of saying it, because the Pacha is what gives rise to the Denan, right? Now, in your report, you refer to the subtle obstructions preventing the perception of the two truths directly. See, another way to talk about the appearance of inherent existence is to say you can't perceive ultimate truths and conventional truths directly and simultaneously. And so it's a third way of talking about it. It's like the inability to perceive the two truths directly and simultaneously. And in effect, they're all meaning the same thing. Now, whether these are consciousnesses or, predispositions are not consciousnesses, is an appearance of true existence a consciousness? I don't think so. It's a consciousness. It refers to a consciousness. But this consciousness that's unable to see the two truths directly, right? That's a consciousness. And sometimes the term marikva is used in this discussion, but this isn't important. What's important is to understand what the obstructions to omniscience are in the Prasangika system. It's a minor topic to figure out whether this is a consciousness or not, and why people use the word marikva. You see, marikva is a consciousness, right? Marikva chujin, rikva yimbata. Marikva chujin, sheva yimbata. the Maripa Chujin, Selshing Ripa Yambata. Clear and knowing. Her, right? Her. So Maripa is clear and knowing. Maripa is Rikpa. Yeah, you have to say dirt all. So anyway.
Is it assumed that if you have a appearance of true existence in this context that you're assenting to that, like assent to the appearance of
No, there's no possibility of ascent anymore, okay? You're like the magician now, because you've achieved the eighth bodhisattva ground. You've overcome the afflictive emotions, which means denzin. Denzin means that you're assenting to this appearance. You've overcome it from the root, which means no seeds that could produce denzin. So you have denang all over the place. Don't believe it. It's like going to the movies. Don't believe it. Stop jumping up on the stage, you know?
But if it's completely eradicated.
Really, it's completely eradicated, but things are still appearing wrong. Like the magician, there's TV, and you know, you all see beautiful feast on the last day of class. And, okay, but I know, you see, like the Dajamba, like the 8th ground Bodhisattva, I know that this appearance is false. There isn't any chance that I'll get involved in it and think, how can I, even though I see it, just as you see it, okay?
And why Tenzin Gipacha?
Why Tenzin Gipacha? Because it's not going to produce Tenzin, but it's something left over by Tenzin. Like you had some garlic in your hand and even you washed away the garlic and still there's some smell there. It sets up how things appear. And the very setup of how they appear prevents. Remember my old teacher sitting back on his bed, I told you, and he said, you know, Denang is like this, Shijip is like this. It's like this appearance prevents the appearance of something else. Really something to think about. Whereas when you overcome the obstructions to omniscience, the appearance of one thing doesn't prevent the appearance of other things. You have no, it's called tokomeba. Nothing impeding. Fascinating topic. Now, there's one topic remaining, isn't there? Next time. Then, last two times, we're not going to be able to get on to reading Song with Special Insight again. So you've already done the reading, correct? Or in Meditation on Emptiness. Just, you know, you need a little break at the end. Just review it. Please review it. And we'll talk these last two times about those two sets of readings that you've already done. And notice how little Buddhapalita said. And how little Baba Vivek, which is more incredible, you know, because he's finding fault. And it's like, yeah, sure, maybe you know what you're talking about, but who could possibly know? It's like you have to be clairvoyant to figure, you know, and it really shows you he's dealing within a culture where there was a chance that somebody could understand what he was saying. And then Candrakīrti, there's quite a bit. And then in Tibet, page after page after page after page. And what I find so marvelous, really, in some ways it's tiring, it's burdensome once you get into the topic. Oh my God, how can I keep all this straight? That sort of thing. Why do they do all this nitpicking stuff? You know, it's like, oh, give me a break. Wow, they really are interested. God, they're totally, how could they ever meditate? You know, get off my back. How can I? Well, the course is ending fast. You know? But when you have a little time, such as I spent a lot of time, obviously. And then here, several years ago, when Jules was around, we had a long, couple of years, I think, reading Chanasheva's text in Tibetan. And What's so fascinating is how alive it is and how little they have to work with. So then they start speculating and imagining. You know, how does this fit into Bhāvika system? They construct this system. They construct Candrakīrti system. They construct Buddhapalita system. It's highly constructive. It's highly imaginative. And in one way, it's like, wow, you know, they didn't hold back at all. I was reminded today of a fellow, there was a debate in Dharamsala. And sometimes when geishas would come by at night, you know, I see all these young guys debating. So, older geisha, he's just got his degree, you know, comes by. And he's looking all right. He's trying not to look proud or anything. And the boys, I call them all boys until you're age 35, in the school of dialectics, they gather around the guy. And it's a roast. It's a roast. Complete roast. And, you know, it's like, oh, how are you, geisha, you know? Got your degree, huh? You know, but nothing snide. You have to be around for a while to understand. This is a complete roast. And the geisha probably knows this. But, you know, it's taking up the challenge. I'm getting a little bored. You know, I sit and doing my prayers all the time. I go out and talk to the boys. But, you know, the boys gather around and, you know, somebody brings up a point. And, you know, it's like, you know, help us out with this, will you? And he says something, you know, and it goes on like that. And wow, you know, you get 10, 15 of the boys attacking, roasting, you know, and it's usually done with, you know, a real sense of humor, very underplayed, but with great relish. And remember when this geisha was asked to posit what Bhāvika had in mind, and he said something like, how do I know? No, there isn't anything in the text on this. And that was all. Oh. So, you know, and that's great. It's really a very lively, sort of marvelous tradition.